Hello, this is Dr. Jeffrey Thibert, Assistant Director of National Fellowships in the Center for Undergraduate Scholarly Engagement, or CUSE, at the University of Notre Dame. And for the next few minutes here, I'm going to be giving some sort of last-minute information and advice about the Fulbright U.S. Student Program English Teaching Assistantship. This is really designed for students who have been going through the application process with us at Notre Dame over the summer and are about to be turning in their campus applications soon. I'm recording this on August 5th, 2014, and the campus deadline this year is August 19th, 2014. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the process over the coming weeks that you can expect. I'm going to give some additional information that's useful to know at this point, and then we're going to kind of give some last-minute application advice, and a lot of this will be hopefully stuff that you've already heard throughout the summer, but my goal is to kind of reinforce this here and make sure that you're keeping some things in mind as you put the finishing touches on your application before the campus deadline. If you happen to be watching this live, I don't believe anyone is right now, but if you are, you can feel free to email me questions during the session at fellows, that's plural, at nd.edu. I'll be monitoring that email address during the presentation. And of course, you should feel free to send any questions at any time to fellows at nd.edu. You can also contact Dr. Deb Rotman directly at rotman.1@nd.edu. She is managing the English teaching assistantship part of the process at this point, and would also be happy to answer any questions you might have. So the way the process is going to work for these next few weeks is that, as I said, the campus deadline is August 19th at noon. So by that date and time, you will want to make sure that all of your application material has been submitted through the online application system. So that's all of your part of the application, but you'll also want to make sure that recommendation letters and any foreign language evaluations have been submitted by that date and time as well. Now, if for some reason you don't think that somebody is going to be able to get the material in by that time, do let us know. Technically, it's okay if we don't have all 3 letters by that date, although ideally we would. But if a recommender just can't get it in by that date, please do let us know. Now, what will happen after that is that we will download everybody's application on August 19th and 20th, and then we will unsubmit the application back to you, which means that you will be able to continue working on it even after you've submitted it on August 19th. So when you go to submit, the system will tell you you can't make any changes, the submission is final, and that's technically only true if nobody releases it back to you. But since we're going to unsubmit the application to you, you don't have to worry about that. So you'll submit, we will download everything, unsubmit it, and you would be able to keep working on it. Now, campus interviews will happen in the first 2 to 3 weeks of September. What will happen is that each of you will be assigned an interview day and a time, and we will just assign those. Then if you need a class excuse, we'll be able to provide that for you, and we've done that in the past, and that's worked successfully. You'll be assigned an interview day and time with a committee of usually 3 people, sometimes 4. And the committees will include Dr. Rotman, who many of you have been working with on the ETA application over the summer, and then also typically faculty or staff members here at Notre Dame who are either involved in English as a second language teaching in some way, or are familiar with the country to which you're applying. So our ideal is to set you up with a committee that will be able to kind of most relevantly comment on your particular application. So they will have seen what you submit for August 19th, and then they will ask you some questions about the application and also provide you with some feedback. So the interviews will most likely be 30 minutes, and we call them interviews, but they're also feedback sessions. And so typically what happens is you'll be asked some general questions about your application, and then the committee will kind of get into feedback, which they will hopefully have prepared for you because they will have read your application ahead of time. But this is why it's useful to submit as complete of an application as you can by the campus deadline, because even though you will be able to revise it, the comments you get from the committee will be far more useful if the application is in a more finalized state. If it's a very rough draft, then the comments won't be as useful because you might end up throwing out pieces of the application anyway. So, although you will have almost another 2 months to revise after August 19th, we do encourage you to have a, I would say, a final draft of the application submitted by then, knowing that you will be able to make revisions. The ideal situation is that you would just be making relatively small changes between the campus deadline and the final deadline, and not anything major. Although sometimes that can happen as a result of the discussion with the committee, and we do the interviews early enough where you might have time to make major changes if necessary. After your interview, you will be able to revise and request additional feedback from us before the final deadline, which is October 10th at noon. So we really need everything submitted once and for all by October 10th at noon. At that point, you won't be able to make changes. That gives us a few days to do what we need to do on our end to your application so that it's ready to submit by October 15th, which is the absolute final deadline on our end. So the key deadlines for you to keep in mind are August 19th and then October 10th. And as I said, after the campus interview, it's rare that we would provide feedback between the campus deadline and your interview because you're going to get feedback at your interview. But if you wanted to submit a draft of something in between the interview and the final deadline, you will be able to do that. And we'll provide more information to you about that. Now, one last note I want to make about the process is that Fulbright offers official webinars on finalizing and polishing your application. If you go to their website, which I will show you right now, if this works, where this is located here. Looks like you should be able to see this. This is the official Fulbright site. If you go to Fulbright events and then view all, you will see these are the ones you'll want to look at. August 14th, September 9th, and October 2nd. Some of these other ones are actually for the Fulbright program advisors or for specific Fulbright programs. But if you can attend one of those, I would highly encourage you to do so. It is a chance to ask any last-minute questions you have, and they often provide useful information at these webinars. Now, if you're interested in viewing past webinars, and I've sent emails out about these, but you may not have been able to view them, you can go to About and then to Resources and Events, and then you'll see a section that says Recorded Webinars. If you go there, there's also other material here that might be useful to you. But if you go to Recorded Webinars, you will see a number of webinars that were given earlier in the year. And it may be useful to view these. In fact, I would encourage you to do so if you have time, because there are sometimes helpful tips in these webinars. And of course, because these are recorded, you should be able to skip ahead if you need to. But note that there are English Teaching Assistant, Alumni Ambassador ones where they're going to tell you a little bit about what it's like. The English Teaching Assistant Applicants webinar might be especially useful to you. So if you can view those, I would suggest that you do so. Now, that's pretty much what I want to say about the process. Another point I want to make is that if you have not yet registered for the Embark online application here, please do so right away. And also, you should try to register your recommenders and any foreign language evaluators in there as soon as possible. If you need the info for the recommenders, I emailed this out a little while back. If you need that information, please let me know and I can send that to you. Also, you shouldn't forget that there are sample Fulbright applications on the Box website for CUSE National Fellowships. I sent out a link to that folder. I just sent out an additional email about the link a couple of days ago, early August. So you might want to go there and look at some sample applications. These are applications that have been successful in the past. That may be useful as you're finalizing your own application. You'll be able to preview the applications, but you won't be able to print them. I ask that you not share that material with anyone. So now, in terms of what you should be thinking about in these final stages, hopefully you've got a draft of your application at this point. Hopefully you've been in touch with recommenders with a draft of your application so that they have some material they can use to complete the recommendation form for you. But wherever you are in the process, here are some things I would highly encourage you to do. First, make sure that you, one more time, even if you've done this already, review the country summary information that's relevant to you here. So if you're applying to the ETA in Korea and South Korea, go to Countries East Asia Pacific, go to South Korea, click on the English Teaching Assistantship section, and read this information if you have not. And even if you have, review it. There's important information there about the grant period, which differs. Note that in Korea it's 13 months. In other countries it's 8. So, or 10 or 12. So make sure you take that into account. Also, the candidate profile section is very important. Some countries will say that they really want people who have teaching experience or who plan to be English as a second language teachers. If that's not you, then you might want to look at another country, even at this stage in the game. Korea is actually one of the countries that is most open. Note that all they ask for is that you be well-rounded, articulate, under 30, that you have the initiative to teach this stuff, that you have a willingness to accept the challenge of the intensive cultural experience of a Korean homestay. Note that in Korea, you would be doing a homestay. That's an important point and something you'd want to talk about in your application. But they don't require previous teaching experience. So the candidate profiles are very important. And then you should read the rest of the information too. Will you need to know the language? What's the assignment like? Now, hopefully you've done all this. But the reason to make sure you review this is to be able to address in your proposal, and perhaps even in your personal statement, specific elements of what the program is going to be like. So if you know that Korea involves a homestay, that should appear somewhere in your application, that you know it's a homestay and that you feel prepared to take part in a homestay because of some kind of past experience you've had. If you know that you're mainly going to be a conversation assistant, then think about activities that you could do as a conversation assistant. You might even do some research online into English as a second language teaching to find out what some techniques are. If you know that you're probably going to be in an urban area, you might take that into account. If you know that you're going to be in a rural area, same thing. So ideally, you would tailor your application to the country, and if they mention specific things that they're looking for, you should try to address those things, because that is going to come into play, especially when your application material would be reviewed by the country. They're going to be looking for a fit for their particular ETA, not just ETA generally. And the first round of review will be largely your fit with ETA generally. The second round will be mostly your fit with a particular country. So if you get to that second round, if you're a finalist, or recommended to a host country, you want to make sure that you are tailoring your application to that country. So this is one thing you have to do immediately. The other thing you have to do immediately, second immediately, I guess, if you haven't yet, go to Applicants. And you should have read over all this information ideally at this point. If you haven't, do it. But go to Application Tips and ETA and read over all of this. The most important section is here, Statement of Grant Purpose, because here, as you will see, they tell you exactly what they want you to address in the Statement of Grant Purpose. These are the questions you should be answering in that statement. So go look at the draft you've got now and compare your draft to these points. Can you underline in your draft or highlight in your draft where you answered that first question? Can you highlight where you answered that second question? Same, third, fourth. All of these should be addressed in there. Everybody applying for the ETA should be talking about specific ideas for engaging with students and helping them to learn English. Everybody should be talking about specific qualifications. How do you expect to benefit? Civic engagement outside the classroom. Unless the country summary explicitly says that you won't be able to do that, you should be thinking of what you're going to do when you're not teaching. Are you going to volunteer? Are you going to try to do a kind of informal internship? Are you going to propose a small independent research project? What are you going to do when you're not teaching? Because remember, a big part of Fulbright is civic engagement. That's really the ultimate purpose here. So you'll obviously do this through your teaching, but what are some other ideas you have about how you might do this? Note also that there are formatting requirements here, and you should follow those. Now, the personal statement information is not as directive, but that's on purpose. You can think about the personal statement as essentially trying to answer why you are motivated to apply for this program in this country and how this experience connects up with your goals. So the statement of grant purpose is like the professional statement. That's kind of like your cover letter for a job. Here's why I want this job as an ETA. Here's why I'm qualified. Here are some ideas I have about how I would do this, and here's how I would pursue civic engagement, which is also part of the job. This is the personal statement. This is the biographical sketch. You should not repeat information. So if you mention something in the statement of grant purpose, don't mention it here, or vice versa. But use this space to explain to them who you are, what matters to you, why are you applying for this thing. Maybe you have some kind of story that you think helps illustrate your fit for something like a Fulbright or your interest in the particular country. Maybe you have a story that explains your values or the kind of career goals you have in mind. You might think, have you had Fulbright-like experiences before? Often people, for instance, will talk about previous study abroad experiences they've had in a personal statement to indicate that they have done civic engagement before, that they are flexible, mature, culturally adaptable. These are all things Fulbright is looking for. Often people will talk about their career goals here and why those are their career goals. They will talk about how the Fulbright experience will contribute to those goals. Now keep in mind, some of this you might do in your statement of grant purpose. If you do that there, you don't have to do it here. But this is your one-page chance to give them a sense of who you are and what matters to you. So just imagine somebody sat down with you and you were having a conversation with them, and they said, why are you interested in the Fulbright ETA? And what matters most to you? What are your goals, and how do you think this experience is going to contribute to that? That's the kind of questions you want to be answering in the personal statement. Now, one thing that's important to keep in mind is that, I'm going to actually switch back now. One thing that's going to be important to keep in mind is that you want to make sure that you've got good reasons for wanting to go to a particular country. And this is sometimes where people run into trouble, I think, with the ETA application, because they kind of want to spend a year abroad and they just sort of look through the Fulbright site, hey, this place looks cool, and that's where they want to apply. But that is not going to be really convincing to the reviewers, ultimately. So you want to think about why you might be drawn to a particular place. And out of all the places you might have applied for a Fulbright to, why Korea? Why Thailand? Why Taiwan? Your best chance is if you can convince them that you're going to be an effective English teaching assistant because of past experiences you've had. You can convince them you're going to be an effective Fulbrighter because you've had experiences with civic engagement, cross-cultural engagement, that kind of thing. And you can convince them that you genuinely want to be in the country, that spending a year in that place is going to benefit you in some way. And so try to think about why that country is of interest to you. And think of some things you're excited to experience there. Think of some reason, and try to make sure that the reasons are organic, that they connect to things that you've done before, that they don't just appear to be kind of random, because the reviewers, they will know if you're stretching here. They will know if you're reaching, if you're trying a little bit too hard to come up with reasons. So try to think of really genuine reasons why you would be interested in going to a particular place, and then tell them about those reasons, often in the personal statement. That's largely where the interest in the country will come up, although sometimes that figures into a statement of grand purpose as well. So those are some kind of general tips, some things I'm thinking about in these last days. If you view this soon, we are accepting drafts up through Thursday this week, which is August 7th, and ideally August 7th by noon. You can either submit the draft online through the Embark online system, or you can email us drafts of statements, send them to fellows@nd.edu. We'll try to get you feedback within a week. After that, we won't accept drafts before the campus deadline because it'll be coming up so soon. But of course, you will get feedback through that part of the process. And then there will be additional opportunities for feedback even after the campus interviews. But if you have questions, feel free to send us those at any time, even after Thursday, at fellows@nd.edu. And if you've been in touch with either I or Dr. Rahman directly, you can just contact us directly. But we are here as a resource. We want to help you as much as we can. But my number one piece of advice at this point, no matter where you are in the process, is go back and review that country summary, review those application tips, look at some of the sample applications in the box folder, and just read all this stuff. And then go back, look at the tips again, and make sure that your statements are doing what they ask you to do. Especially the statement of grand purpose. They are very clear about what they want to see there, and that's how they will be reviewing the application. So try to think of convincing, compelling answers to all those questions. And as you're thinking about what you might want to include in the personal statement, think about things that you've done that would be most relevant to something like a Fulbright, a year-long, basically exchange program in another country that's based around cultural immersion, mutual understanding, and civic engagement. Think about what experiences might be most relevant to demonstrating that you would be good at something like that. So I think we will leave it at that. Again, if you have any questions, please do let me know. It's been great working with those of you with whom I've worked, and I look forward to hopefully seeing or meeting the rest of you in the coming weeks. The ETA is an exciting experience. I think even if you don't have teaching or tutoring experience, you can still be competitive for an ETA if you're choosing a country that doesn't give preference to those with teaching or tutoring experience. If you do have teaching or tutoring experience, make sure to highlight that in the application. It will really increase your chances, especially in certain countries. But yeah, do let me know if there's anything that we can do for you. And I wish you all the best in advance of this campus deadline of August 19th, 2014 at noon. So let us know if you need anything, and take care.